Claire. All right. So
Eddie.
hit us. First of all, I hope you and your daughter and your family are doing well.
Thank
Please
you, and the same to you
hit
and your
us with
family.
your you have Yosef and I over here. Hit
Well,
us
I
with
drafted the letter for you guys.
Yeah, I haven't been able to read it while we were talking, but I saw that it was dropped.
so
But like,
what
to what end? Like,
to
what do
what
you
end?
think's gonna happen?
What
Well,
tell how
well,
can we help?
well, you know my idea. I think the problems of the Western world is caused by America not having a functioning moral system. So nobody knows who they are, and I'm afraid they will keep blaming you guys because you seem to be, more privileged and high status and more protected than their own Gentiles, and they kind of hate you because of your privileged status. And because they don't really believe in God, because if they did, they would be blaming God for everything, saying, we are suffering because God is punishing us for our sin. But they say it's the Jews; they keep doing this to us, and I think this is essentially the problem of Jews and Muslims because they also hate Muslims. So, and the reason is because they haven't got a functioning system. I mean, they don't even, practice marriage anymore. So, they are an aging and shrinking society, and the government brings more immigrants in, and they hate it, and they blame you guys and Muslims who are also part
Okay,
of the, you
so
know,
I, I'd say, look, when Jews were pretty downtrodden and very less privileged, whether in North Africa or well, under any of the Christian kingdoms, whether it was the Visigoths, the Papal States, the Nestorian sort of towns in the east, the Byzantine Empire, the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, right? It hasn't really mattered how like successful Jews are or not. Christians hated them, and
Mhm.
like if they had and this is like one of the real challenges around trad cats is like people who want to return to pre-Vatican II. Like I do not want the morality of Catholicism pre-Vatican II for the most part. Like there are some good bits, maybe, but like a lot of it was real. Like Jews and Catholics did not get along. Like there was a lot of problems, and that was when they had a functioning moral system. So like I'm not exactly like wanting to push in that direction, and trad cat circles, not all.
Yeah, but
Some straight and
Christianity
even.
is but Christianity has this narrative that you kill Jesus, and
Yes, but they also think that they killed Jesus. So like it depends on how religious they are. But if you really ask like a Christian who's like serious, like whether they're Catholic or Protestant, like there is a teaching, or I don't know, I think Eastern Orthodox has this too, but haven't had this conversation with them, where like they feel like they're responsible for killing Jesus, and sometimes there's like a weird cognitive dissonance where they also blame the Jews, or they forget that they're also responsible and only blame the Jews. So
yeah,
this
yeah,
there
they
is a
have this
conversation to be
synagogue
had
of
there.
Satan thing, and they love to
Yes.
say it, and Christ killers and whatever. So, but you see, Islam has a different narrative. You see,
Yes and no.
so
I mean, there's many Muslims who believe Jews killed Muhammad, right, through poison. Like that is a known hadith that has like caused so many issues. And like you can say like yes, the Quran is a different narrative and we can find all sorts of ways, but like there's certain interpretations of Islam that are really not much better. And like, we have to remember Rambam, Maimonides, right? He was not fleeing like the Reconquista. He was fleeing like a new Muslim government that had become in that was like incredibly, like they did not accept the dhimmi status. Basically, is how they
yeah,
understood the Quran. Like they rejected that, and they like said either die or convert, and like a lot of people fled. Um,
yeah, they were
and
ignoring chapter 2, verse 256 of the Quran that
right,
says,
but look,
uh,
just like there are Christians who like forget like that they're as like, in their own teaching they're as responsible for the death of Jesus as anyone else. Um, like there are Muslims who like ignore that, right? And
well, exactly. And their problem is that to this day, they don't even understand the difference between a monarchy and a republic. But according to the Sunnis, they believe that I mean, they talk about these four rightly guided caliphs, right? The ones the four that came after Muhammad. And only they were rightly guided because, I mean, the implication is that all the others were not rightly guided. And that's why the caliphate ended last century. And so they
Mhm.
have to admit that they haven't exactly covered themselves with glory in the way they have interpreted their Quran. And the problem is simple, because all the caliphs after the four rightly guided caliphs were absolute monarchs. And you can imagine, if you were an Islamic scholar and you know that your absolute monarch doesn't like certain interpretations of the Quran, then you would have to avoid those interpretations if you don't want to be, exiled or fined or jailed or even executed.
Sure.
So,
But at the same time, like we can talk about that, but we should also talk about the fact that like under the Baghdad Caliphate, um, right, like was that the Abbasids, like Jews and Nestorians and Buddhists were brought to Baghdad and super integrated into the court. I mean, it was a golden age before the Spanish golden age, or the Iberian golden age, that we really need to talk about, where like all of learning, right, like the Nestorian patriarch, I can't remember if he goes by that, but whatever he is, the head of the Nestorian Church, both Babylonian Talmudic academies, the Science and Astronomy Academy from northern India, who are Buddhists, right? They were all brought to Baghdad, and there was a certain form of Islam that really worked. I believe can't remember if it was Sunni or Shia, but like it was another golden age that allowed certain things and certain liberties. Of course, then there were other Muslims who criticized those caliphs, and then we have like the huge fight over Kalam, right, where the people who believe in Kalam actually will go too far in persecuting the non-Kalamists, and then they get turned on, and then Islam actually kind of goes in the opposite direction for the most part for a long time. Like there's so much history here, but like I don't know that the Muslim world is technically as really so much better off. There are parts of it, like I know a rabbi who does amazing work with Muslims in Indonesia, for instance, like absolutely like the type of
what, Tovia
interfaith stuff they're
Singer?
doing is what?
Tovia Singer?
No.
Not Tovia Singer. No, this is Alan Brill. Like he does this unbelievable work with the Muslims in Indonesia. He's met with the heads of the real big heads of the Muslim communities there. He's met with the head of Indonesia. Like they've incorporated some sort of interfaith curriculum in Indonesian Muslim schools, like with his input. Like it's like there are parts of the Muslim world that really are really good at this. There's also pockets of like interesting kind of Sufi groups in Turkey and in Western Africa maybe that are also promising at the moment. But for the most part, because of politics, like it is really hard to build the interfaith bridges with Islam, even though we could talk about maybe like the Noahide laws are universal in a way. Like Rabbi Ben Abramson has done a lot of work on showing how the Quran actually is really a version of Noahidism, and like that is his like life's work, and he's like a great
Yes, I
source
am
for that.
aware of
But
his work.
yeah, so like he's out there trying to do this, and Rabbi Shirky puts out his stuff. He's trying to put out something to like talk,
Rabbi
some sort of
Nagan.
stories. Rabbi Medan is doing work. A lot of that work's concentrated in Israel, where there are a lot more Muslims and Jews living in close proximity. Even though at the same time they're also like traveling a lot for it, so they're not actually doing it necessarily with their
Yeah,
neighbors.
but Yosef, ultimately, like you're saying, this requires this term called ich jihad, right? Which is when
Interpretation.
correct,
Yeah,
and like
yeah,
that's
it's
been
parish.
abandoned. They need to bring it back. Like, and again, not to sound patronizing, like this could be true also about the Christians, but as Jews, we still have a tradition of how to do that, and we could offer that to Muslims as well. And listen, I'm the chronic optimist over here, but
but at the same, I want to get to Claire's big point though.
yes.
Yeah, because we know your position. I think, Chazi. So sorry,
Go ahead,
but like,
go ahead.
but Ramchal, right? Ramchal, is it Ramchal or is it Abulafia? Both of them, they both go to Rome. They both want to like challenge the Pope, or, like teach the Pope, that like the true, and they're both having these massively interesting, esoteric transcendental experiences, right? Both of them are in that world of like having these individual experiences and trying to bring them down to earth, and they're both inspired to go and go to the Pope, and like neither, like one of them dies on the way, and the other one like gets turned away. He's like so convinced he's going to convince the Pope, and like this will be when Messiah comes, and he gets turned away at the gates of Rome. The Papal States were really anti-Jewish at that time. In fact, the Pope was like sick and killing people, and like they're trying to do transfusions basically with kids' blood. It was a crazy story. So Ramchal like thought he was gonna like save this guy who sounds sort of vampiric, But like it didn't work. Like we've had 2,000 years of discussion of trying to go to like, and one, it's not a very nuanced discussion because we actually have, I don't know what within Islam, I imagine
Yosef, we weren't home.
it wasn't home.
No, now
I don't think being in Israel changes it. Being in Israel makes it more complicated. I mean, maybe yes, being in Israel at some way shaped the Vatican II and post-war Catholic Jewish relations. It has not shaped the Eastern Orthodox ones so much yet. It certainly shaped part of the Protestant world, but very, very limited to like pockets of the West. I don't know how much of that was Israel versus the Holocaust versus like so many other factors, but like that hasn't really happened in most of the Muslim world. And like as much as I would love,
sorry, what hasn't happened in the Muslim world?
I have not seen a serious attempt at large, Sunni or Shia, to do this reconciliation. I've seen, like, as I can say there's parts of countries that have done it. There are certain leaders that have done it. There's certain imams or sheikhs that have done it. There is this like this institute that's trying to do like Sufi, the son of Maimonides, like Sufi syncretism stuff, just fascinating. But like ultimately, like these are such, except for maybe Indonesia, most of these are, and we can talk about the Abraham Accords here. The Abraham Accords like ultimately have not proven out, and I would love them for this. Like messianic vision. Like I wish they got there. They haven't gotten there yet to what they
yet.
I thought we were talking about idolatry.
But we are talking about idolatry. I don't know that going down that route of pushing that is really effective. And like, is there what end do you beat your drum?
You guys have never tried it, and neither have the Muslims. So
no, of course they've tried. We've tried.
When did you ever do it?
To tell Christians they were idolaters?
Yeah, when did you ever do it?
It's been a constant like polemical battle. Like,
no, you can't just say, we spoke to some random Christian.
No.
We never got it. No, it has to be official.
No. Look at the Nachmanides disputation, right? And that's the Barcelona disputation,
how many
right? In front of the king.
Ago was that? Come on.
No, but that's not the only time. It's happened it happened 500 years ago and 300 years ago.
Yeah, thank you. 500 years
ago. It's happened. You're saying there's no historical example.
It has to happen now.
But it doesn't. It's not the way. It's not the approach.
I'm doing it for you guys, but it would be helpful. Muslims would join in and say, we're ashamed that we're letting this lone woman do the stuff that.
It's not about shame. It's not about shame. Look. I mean, women can do things. Devorah, is Devorah works with Barak, and we can recognize her leadership. But at the same time, it's also not the way of our tradition. Generally, and we can talk about like all this, like, and Chezi might differ me on the evangelizing, but generally our tradition is to try to serve as a role model, which is more passive, and two, when they basically force us to engage in debates, like we will debate properly. But we don't go out and try to do dawah, right? Like that's just not a Jewish thing.
Right.
You want us to do dawah. We don't do that.
I don't.
For the most part. I mean, Tovia Singer's trying to do it, but like for the most part, we don't do it.
I want us to be what you just said as far as like being role models, which is passive. In the diaspora, that's passive. In your land, you are activated, and I know we may disagree about this. Like we very much, I mean, this is why I don't think we should be evangelizing, but like you're asking me about being like missionaries right now. Like we are offering, there's a difference between the Christian and the Islam route. And we are offering this Jewish axis in that sense. And so we are asking the nations to be real Bnei Adam, right? To realize Hashem's image within them, right? I'm not trying to erase their identity. Ultimately, like we said, we're trying to elevate it. Now, because of that, Claire, it's not that I have found the conversations that we have in the TLC and that Yosef and I have with Christians. And I would, in some sense, I would include Jacob in that because Jacob's, maybe I'm wrong about this, but like the association also with Yosef and me allows for that good cop, bad cop also relationship. But the idea in general is that because in our toolkit, I don't have to be calling out the Christian as an idolater.
Oh, no, you don't. And this is not what I'm asking Jews to do at all. So for years I've been saying, please just rank the 4 Gentile religions according to their conformity with the no-hide laws. And I
So
think you'll
you
have to say Islam. You can't be saying Christianity and Islam are equally no-hide, because I already know that Jews are not even allowed to enter churches, but you're allowed to pray with Muslims in mosques. So,
Well, doesn't that
come
well,
on.
doesn't that
so
also
there's
depend? Correct me if I'm
we aren't allowed to enter Catholic or Eastern Orthodox or Coptic churches. That is true. We are allowed to enter Protestant ones that don't have statues, which is so
Yeah.
there is a difference.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
That gets into the internal war about over idolatry within Christianity and what makes something an idol.
Well, the Trinity is idolatry. It's
well,
conceptual,
no,
isn't it?
well, no. I would separate it. We're more systematic. The Trinity is the Trinity, depending on the form, is either
Right,
polytheism or chiefs,
depending
right?
on the form.
Monarchical is different than egalitarian Trinitarian. But like us being here and having these conversations and saying like, hey, monarchical Trinitarianism is less bad. I mean, even so, it might still have problems, but because we don't have shirk in the same way. Shituf is different from them. Shituf, though, is not doraita. It's right. So there's like it's a different level of problem. Shirk, like you guys consider it a much higher level of sin than we do. And that's an important difference. Because it allows us to have a different type of engagement, I think, with Christianity than you do, and that's fine. I mean, that Muslims do, and I think there might be space for both of those to some degree. But and I get why Noahide actually maybe should be stricter with themselves and around Shituf. Like, actually, that's not crazy to be machmir on there. I want to still machmir is being more strict. I just want them to understand that, like, for us, like, there's a difference in the Rabbanan and Doraita. A rabbinic fence versus like monarchical Trinitarianism is a problem, but not because
You
it's
mean
actually
Orthodox
a problem.
Christianity, don't you? I mean, just to make it easy for the people who may be listening, the monarchical Trinity is Orthodox Christianity. Is that right?
Sometimes.
The filioque thing.
Sometimes.
But at the same time,
but that's what I
for
was going to
me,
say is this is
sorry, go ahead.
it depends on the interpretation. So, for example, about the point about entering Protestant churches, what I was just going to say to that, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I think this is an important thing to say, is that for Christians, it depends on the interpretation. There are Unitarian Protestant Christians who don't even believe in a Trinity. So to say something like, and even for Trinitarian Christians, there's obviously a plethora of interpretations. So to say something like Christianity is idolatry as a blanket statement is just wrong.
Yeah, so I would differentiate. I'd also say like, so Sam's great. I love Sam. He's a Unitarian, but like the way he reads the Bible is still super Protestant and to some degree like evangelical. And like even with his Unitarianism, like I think there's issues because for me, actually more than the Trinity, I think my bigger problem is dualism between Satan and the powers of darkness and whether they exist or not, whether God actually makes the good or God makes everything. To me, that's actually the much deeper one, and that one actually has a much stronger biblical basis for us because we have prophets who write against Zoroastrianism, and that's like very clear. And this is the oldest, like even Josephus says, like the Pharisees, like what makes them different is they think God actually created everything, good and bad. And that is like the rabbis are not the Pharisees, but the rabbis look to the Pharisees and try to take parts of their teaching, and that is one of the major parts that they take that differentiates us like fundamentally from Enochic views, which is Christian, but also to some degree some forms of Islam are just as dualistic in my opinion. They don't have to be Trinitarian to be dualistic, and that to me is a much bigger problem that we have to like talk about. And like I don't know how to solve Enochism. Like to me that's what I call it. It's the Enochic package of Jubilees in the first book of Enoch, where like Satan is like an independent power. He's rebelled. He is the prince of the earth. Like we don't have any of that, and that's like a huge. And Kabbalah has its own mapping, but it's different. And like we can talk about why Kabbalah is different and how they work through it, like in the mystical kind of circles. That it's not as rationalist as maybe I am on this, but like at the same time, there's a huge difference on whether you descend from kind of an Enochic Jewish sectarianism, which the Essenes did, and then the Christians after them, Johannine, whatever groups. And I'd say Muslim too, to some degree. Though I'm not like an expert in every group of Islam, and I think parts of Islam, especially the Kalam, actually were closer to the kind of rabbinic Pharisaic understanding of God, which is interesting because, of course, they're doing more Greek philosophy, and we can talk about like how they understand the good and the bad. To me, that's the big problem. That's where I would like push, and it's a really hard problem to push. I mean, this is where
the Trinity is obviously Shituf. I'm sure the Muslims will agree. And the most powerful churches in the world are Trinitarian. So you tackle the most powerful churches. There's no point, picking on Jehovah's Witnesses or Seventh-day Adventists or Mormons. Because, I mean, if you get the most powerful churches, the others will fall into line.
But I don't think you're going to convince them this way. Like, I don't think writing them letters or
Well, you
marching
can
to them and
just
knocking on the gates or like
Well,
commenting in comment sections convinces
let
anybody.
me ask it like this, Yosef and Claire. Yosef, what do you think our effect has been on, like, obviously this is a conjecture, but like you're guessing over here, but this also has to do with the effect of our method, right? So what do you think?
Sorry, I actually need to go. Hold that thought. I had to call somebody. I forgot.
Okay, please send me the thing on
Write it
retrograzality
down.
from Sam Liebens.
Write down whatever the question is, and hopefully I will either do it on
To be
Discord
continued.
or
All right.
Okay.
Claire,
Sorry.
this is in no way personal, but we'll continue this some other time.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Everyone remember, God is one.
God is one.
Goodbye.
God is one.
Okay, I think that was fairly productive. Thank you all for joining and listening. We will continue next week with our prayer. And perhaps also continue this just chatting later on, maybe Yakubi Mugatu, or what I call Jacob, maybe he will want to continue this stream or this line of thought. Yes. Okay. Take care, people.